Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be chatting to writer and artist Seán Hogan. How are you, Seán?
Hey Stephen, I'm doing great. How are you?
Not too bad. How's life in Helsinki?
Life in Helsinki is yeah, it's pretty good, pretty good. Autumn's after hitting us hard here, so I can feel the winter chill slowly coming in. The snow is definitely on its way.
Yes, it's definitely hot water bottle season.
For sure. For chamomile tea every night, so it's
Oh,
it's quite nice,
beautiful.
quite cozy.
So you're a tea person, not a coffee person.
Oh, coffee during the day, tea by night.
Oh, I'm a tea man. I never took to coffee myself.
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. No, I love coffee. It's actually I moved to Finland, and Finland are the number one coffee drinkers in the world, or so they tell
Seriously,
me. So, yeah, yeah. So I fit in quite well over here. So it's quite
it's
nice. Yeah, yeah.
interesting. So your graphic novel Brotherhood, can you tell us a little bit about the general premise of the book and what people can expect from book one?
Yeah. So Brotherhood, part one. The book is set during the Irish War of Independence, and kind of the quick sell of the book is it's Tarantino if he had directed War of the Buttons.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah. So I think that conjures up a lot in people's minds.
I'm sold
Um,
on that for sure.
So essentially, the story is four teenagers in 1920s Ireland, in rural Ireland, in Tipperary, where I'm from. They get caught up in the War of Independence. They start fighting it in the war, and they realize that they're having this kind of teenage rebellious moment, and they realize actually they love this sense of freedom that they're getting, this adventure, this escapism, and
Yeah.
they fall deeper and deeper into the war and kind of start to lose maybe a little bit of their humanity along the way.
Oh wow. Okay. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, well, hopefully it comes true in the book. It's been a long road. I started writing the book back in 2018, I think.
Right.
Um, so it's a big project. And it's two parts, part one and part two, and both parts are 76 pages long.
Yeah.
And the art style and drawing and it's quite, it's quite on the realistic side, so it's a lot of work that I've been working away on this. So I'm so happy that finally now in November, late November, it's gonna launch.
Yeah. So when you are working on a book, you're just full on into it. How many hours a day do you spend working on it?
Well, it depends. So I've been working on it, for 7 years. So, when I was writing the book, I work full time as a storyboard artist. That's
Yeah.
that's my day job. So working for
Fantastic.
children's animation.
Oh,
Yeah.
anything interesting? Anything we'd know?
Well, the most high profile, I worked on Tom and Jerry for a year.
Oh, brilliant.
Um, yeah, so that was pretty incredible. We're working with an amazing team over in California. Um, and collaborating with them. It was like really like to work on those two was really amazing. But animation is it's one of these industries. It'll break your heart. It's owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers. We're doing all those cuts the last few years. So actually,
Right.
that project got cancelled midstream. So
Oh, no
only
way.
three of the yeah, only three of the episodes actually got finished. So that was really heartbreaking for everybody involved.
I would
But
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, but it's still that was one year, and then we moved on to a great project. I just finished up a project there during the summer that was for Nickelodeon. That show is called Super Duper Bunny League.
Oh, I must check that out.
Yeah, so I'm not sure when it's coming out, but it's based on Jamie Smart's comics actually, Superhero Bunny League.
Right.
So
Very cool.
that was yeah, that was a really fun project, really good. I was on that for about a year and a half, and I was supervising the revisions team for the last half a year of it. So
Yeah.
really super cool project. So yeah, so animation very fun, and you learn a lot and get to meet lots of very nice people.
Brilliant. How many parts of Brotherhood will there be? Because this is obviously part one. Do you have a certain amount planned?
Yeah, no, it's a two-part story. So originally I was writing the book I wanted it to be just one graphic novel. And as I was writing it, I was like, you know what? My first book that I had written back when I was 21, nearly a decade ago now, that was 62 pages long. So that
Wow.
was 64 pages long, I think. So that was a good length. So I said, okay, maybe I'll push it out to 80 pages length. And as I was writing it, I just kept adding more and realizing, okay, I need this character, and okay, actually it'd be great to do this.
Yeah.
So the book became 152 pages.
Wow.
That's where the script is now. So I said this is kind of unmanageable to like do it all
Yeah.
in the one go. So I split it into two parts, part one and part two. So part two, it's written and it's ready to go once or ready to start drawing it once part one is out.
Yeah. Fantastic. Do you have a release date for part two?
For part two, no. It all depends on how storyboarding work, how that works out,
Yeah.
how much time I have to actually dedicate to doing the book.
Yeah.
I've applied for a few like arts grants that maybe I can work on the book full time,
Brilliant.
and also like looking for a publisher, maybe hopefully to publish part one and part two together. So there's a lot of different factors that will affect the time, but um, ideally, I'd love it if it was out spring 2026. That would be like the
Yeah.
dream.
That'd be the ideal.
Mm.
In terms of your art style, is there any artists that have had a particular influence on your style?
Um, yeah, because the book here now, Brotherhood, it's kind of a semi-realistic style, and as I was drawing it, I realized huge like influence on me is actually Mark Bagley, who I would have read growing up. He was drawing Ultimate Spider-Man at the time,
Yeah.
and as I'm drawing, I'm seeing Mark Bagley come out in the eyes and
Yeah.
the hands and everything,
So is that a
really, really
subconscious
jumping
thing?
out. I really think so. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very deep inside. And then when I'm drawing a little more cartoony, I think I grew up reading the Beano and the Dandy, so I think that kind of seeped in, and has had like a pretty big influence on the way I draw as well.
Yeah.
So I think that they are kind of the two big influences on my art style. But it's definitely, I think my art that's like in Brotherhood. I was only talking to one of my French friends recently, and we are comparing like our influences, and all of his comic book influences are French and Belgian, and then all mine are kind of like, I don't know, in Ireland we seem so focused on American comics.
Yeah.
They're the big influence. Um, so definitely like kind of Marvel comics as well, like Steve Ditko and all those comics from back in the day, Jack Kirby. Like I can
Yeah.
see those influences there as well for sure.
Fantastic. And same with the writing. Is there any writers who have had a particular influence on your writing style?
Um, Yeah, I would say so. Like maybe more so. Well, in comics for sure. I think in my early 20s, I read Punk Rock Jesus
Nice.
by Sean Gordon Murphy, and I think that kind of had a big impact on me. I actually wrote my college thesis on that book,
Right.
so I think that had a pretty impact on how I write comics and how I view comics.
Yeah.
Um, and then kind of for Brotherhood specifically, I think um, Jeff Lemire's like Plutona, I think that had like a big impact on how I was writing the book,
Yeah.
and how Matt Rosenberg wrote in Four Kids Walk into a Bank. I think that had a pretty big impact as well.
Yeah.
And then as well as that, I think probably I use Tarantino as a to sell the book, and I think Tarantino, how he writes, had a big impact on Brotherhood and was a big influence. And Shane Black as well. Actually, I think his kind of
Yeah.
writing style had a big impact as well.
So can people expect that kind of tone in the book?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Um, I mean, yeah, the book is, and probably another good touchstone is probably Martin McDonagh, or the two McDonagh brothers, with their films. Um, I definitely have like super influenced by like sharp dialogue and trying to be witty with the dialogue,
Yeah.
having like and of course it's comics as well. So, you know, in a way, the less writing, the better. So it's definitely kind of peeling back and just really getting down to
Yeah.
what I can say in three bubbles. What can I say in one bubble? And trying to really, you know, the writing process. It took 2 years to write the book, and there was a lot of editing, a lot of changes, and a lot of like polishing. So, so just trying to get it to where it needs to be.
Yeah, comic book dialogue, I find like you have to be really efficient with it.
Yeah, yeah. And even now, like I'm lettering the book at the moment, and I'm like trying to like, okay, maybe this is too wordy, and I'm like trying
Yeah.
to maybe reword things, and
I
so
remember the
yeah, but
first
like
the first comic I ever wrote, I had just far too many words on the page, and I'm like,
mm,
this just won't fit. So it's a good learning experience. It's a good, like, you have to just learn exact and plan it well, like exactly how much can go on a page.
for sure, for sure. I mean, the great thing about being like a cartoonist is that I have complete control over the writing and the artwork.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I can make these changes. I'm not like putting pressure on the letterer to be like, oh, actually, I kind of like change that, or talking to an artist being like, oh, actually, could we make more space here or
Yeah.
whatever. So I can kind of make those changes almost on the fly as well. But yeah, efficiency is a huge thing, and letting this, comics is a visual medium, letting
Yeah.
the images do the storytelling for you, and almost having the dialogue be flavor, and uh, have the characters' emotion coming through their face, not just through their words. It's a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking at the one of the pages inside the book, your characters seem very expressive.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, working in storyboards, we're drawing cartoon characters all the time, and they're super expressive.
Yeah.
And typically, you get the dialogue of the character that you're working on. So, you're always trying to match it, and you're always trying to act things out to really get the expression. Um, and for the book as well, I use a lot of my own photo reference as well. Like always taking pictures here, and I have the mirror in front of me, trying to capture exactly what kind of emotion that I want to get.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, but it's funny with the images of the drawings, that it took a long time to actually get to this point of drawing and being happy with the drawing. I'll go on a little tangent here in case anybody has experienced something similar. Because I made two books previously before Brotherhood. I made Rather Than Paul back in 2015, and I made a book called Project Crossroads, which was a huge collaboration project with a bunch of different other talented creators
Yeah.
in 2016. And I worked so hard on those books, to the point that I almost kind of ruined the experience of them.
Yeah.
The whole, Rather Than Paul was like the whole way through was loving it. I had created a kind of an art style for that book that I knew I could like do, and I could do on time and really like excel at. Not relying too heavily on anatomy, but relying on cartooning.
Yeah.
But the workload was, I maybe didn't work. It all came up at the end. Anyway, I was working very hard, and almost at the end kind of was unhappy with the book, even though the whole way through I really enjoyed the experience. And then Project Crossroads a year later was a very, very stressful book. And I was kind of burnt out. I just finished graduated college and feeling quite burnt out, but I was still working on it. So
So it felt
that
like
was
a bit of a grind just to get through it.
yeah, yeah, and that was a tight deadline as well. So I was bringing that out for Top Bubble that year. So
Yeah.
tight deadline, and for both those books, I really pushed myself until I was sick almost.
Right.
Um, so that had a huge kind of impact on my mental state. To the point that I actually was afraid of picking up a pencil. So I actually didn't draw any personal work for nearly 2 years
Wow.
after that. Yeah, it really, really had a huge impact on me. But I was still able to write. Writing was a lot of fun, and it didn't cause me any stress. It was quite fun and very engaging. And then I started working in animation as well. So I was working in animation, which kept my drawing skills ticking along. And for some reason in my mind, I could draw at work, but once I got home and I had the drawing board in front of me, I couldn't do any work. So
Wow.
that was huge. That was really, really a dark time for my
Yeah.
art creation and even just for myself personally. So
Is there anything in particular you did to get around that?
I went to therapy.
Right. Okay.
I went I went to therapy, and it was incredible. Really, really fantastic. I had an amazing psychotherapist. She was incredible.
Yeah.
And just talked. I went there for about a year and a half, talking about different things, and really like trying to focus in on the art and coming around to like to those experiences in the past. I learned from them, coming to get the benefits from them,
Yeah.
and just changing my mindset as well. And by the end of that, I was talking as well about like I felt so overwhelmed, like there's so much to learn, anatomy, like fashion, like
Yeah.
um, all the different things you have to learn for drawing. And it was so overwhelming, and she helped me like take it one step at a time, focus, gave me tools to like look after myself better. And by the end of that, I came out a much happier person, much healthier relationship with my art.
That's fantastic.
And it was really good, really good. So I came out of that. So I finished that in 2019, and then as well, I knew I needed to get better at drawing. So I actually went to study classical drawing in Denmark. So I moved to Denmark in 2020.
Right.
Um, so um, so yeah, I went to a place called the Drawing Academy in Denmark. That's part of an animation school there, in a town called Vibo in like rural Denmark. So
Yeah.
I was there, and essentially the course is like you do life drawing, like live action life drawing croquis in front of you,
Yeah.
pretty much all day, 5 days a week, and they give you homework as well. So you're there in the evenings, just drawing. And that was really an incredible experience, and was exactly what I needed to gain more kind of ability and confidence. Um, because yourself, you're sitting at home, you're trying to learn something, it can be quite difficult. But if you put yourself
Yeah.
just in the environment, and that course was meant to be 6 months, or 5 months, I think 5 months. So very focused time, and it was really, really fantastic. The teachers were one Russian teacher and one teacher that had studied in Moscow at one incredible drawing school there. So
Yeah.
really learned a lot. Of course, COVID came in then and ruined the whole thing. The course actually finished early,
Right. Yeah.
um, but yeah, therapy and study were the two things that got me out.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad it worked out well for you.
Hmm.
So when you're planning a story, do you do a big detailed outline, or do you go in with a simple outline and see how the story unfolds? How much do you like to plan ahead?
Yeah. So so for Brotherhood, like the original kernel of the idea was in 2017, and I knew I kind of wanted to focus. I love my bicycle, so I knew I wanted to write a story about that involved a bicycle somehow, and that was
Oh, I
cool.
just have to say, bicycles look particularly difficult to draw for some reason.
They are. Well, I mean, it's the perspective and circles and
Yeah.
trying to make it all work. So it is. It's like writing a book that's all about horses. It's like giving yourself a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's good. I think the bikes in the book look good. So
The one on the
it
cover looks
worked out.
great.
Oh, cheers, yeah. Yeah, I definitely. If you want to learn how to, if you want to learn how to draw something, just make a comic about it, and then by the end of
Yeah.
it, you'll know. Um,
So yeah, in terms of your planning process, how much detail do you put into your outline, or do you like to just keep it simple?
yeah, I like to like it's quite organic the way I write. Like I kind of have the kernel of the idea, or several kernels of ideas, and I let them ferment for a long time until they eventually come out, and then characters start to emerge. And different scenes as well. Different scenes will emerge. Different, like, if something stupid happens or something silly happens, I'll write that down and I'll be like, oh, that's something that I can put into this idea that I have. And at any one time, I have 5 or 6 ideas. Like right now, there's like 5 or 6 ideas in my mind that I'm still like kind of working through for later projects.
Yeah.
And then eventually it'll come time to write. And typically, it seems like with a lot of my writing, I already know what the ending is.
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of like almost the most important part, because now you know what the story is almost about. So then I start writing, not so much looking into like the page structure, but just getting down like this scene and then this scene and then this scene will happen, and then maybe some of the dialogue, and I flesh it out that way. I'll have scene A and scene B, and there'll be like, oh, I like this and I like that, and then the really fun stuff is connecting things. Like, okay, how do I actually make this story work? And
Yeah.
okay, I know the characters here, but like at this point in the story, it's roughly I want them to be here. So how do I get them to go on that journey? And that's like the really, really fun part.
Yeah.
And then the most important, like at a certain point, it's very important to like just get to the get that first draft finished, because that's the hardest part. And then working, polishing that draft, looking at like how is this working, adding the page structure, and then as well, like I'm a big fan of John Truby. I don't know if you know John Truby.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So for Brotherhood, I came in like once the story was written, I was pretty happy with it. I have one of his books, the Anatomy of Story.
Yeah.
And he's a big advocate of like writing your story and not putting a structure on it, but then coming in after it's written and then applying the structure. So it's not like you're not creating a story that feels like it's like artificial. It feels organic because you've written it organically.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you read or watch where it feels like, okay, they want to go from point A and B to C, but it feels very forced. Like they really need to kind of wrestle with it to get it to those points.
Totally. I mean, I almost stopped watching Netflix because it feels like in the writers' room they're rushed to like get things moving and to get things from point A to point B.
When you're under
Whereas
pressure like that, sometimes you just try out the most ridiculous thing because you have to get it done, and it's like, okay, this happens to get them there, and you're like watching it going, okay.
Yeah. So when you're writing your own story and you don't really have a deadline, then that's you have that it's afforded to you that you can take your time and really think about what it is that you're saying, and start applying it in. And also when I was writing Brotherhood, I was part of a writing circle in our work. So there was about maybe 7 or 8 of us in this writing circle,
Right.
and we'd meet once a month. And the only thing to attend every month, you had to have written something and read everybody else's stuff.
Right.
So it didn't matter if you had just written like 2 sentences. That was enough. You could still come,
Yeah.
So that was wonderful as well. That was great to have that, especially because Brotherhood was the biggest thing I had written and the most complex, and there was so much going on in the book. It was great to go there, say, here's 20 pages or well, maybe not 20, but 10 pages I'm after writing this month. What do you think? And they really gave me great advice, and I hope I gave them good advice too. Everybody was kind of doing all sorts of different projects, so it was really great.
Yeah, I find it's pretty essential to show your work to as many people as possible, rather than just working on it in isolation and throwing it out there. You need feedback.
Oh, totally. Because if you don't get that feedback, then you could be stuck in your head and not be able to solve things, or you could be like writing something that's totally tone deaf and doesn't work at all. For like Brotherhood, for example, the main character MacDara, he has an older sister called Eve, and she was in the book and she was just kind of hanging around. And I presented some pages to the group, and there was some women in the group, and they were like, "Wow, love Eve. That line of dialogue. Like, oh, I can't wait to see where that leads to. Like, that seems really interesting. What's going on with her?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, what is Eve actually doing? Like, oh, here's me, a male writer writing a female character, like being a complete idiot. Like, what is going on in their life, and how can I enrich that, and how can I make them maybe a bigger part of the story?" So,
Yeah.
also the different perspectives is really essential.
Absolutely. When you're writing a script, how detailed are your descriptions, and does it vary depending on whether you're writing for yourself or someone else?
Yeah, I'm super detailed. I really am, like almost too much, even for myself.
Right.
Uh, and in a way, it's because I can kind of see what I want, so I write it down like um, very, very clearly, and then I'm like, oh yeah, in 2 years, if I write it this clearly, I'll know exactly what I want to draw or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like my mind works really well with words. And maybe drawing is a little bit more of a struggle. Um, so I think it's easier for me just to write very detailed like breakdowns. And then when I come to drawing it, then I can kind of change what it is that I can be like, okay, this actually doesn't work. Writing
Yeah.
brain doesn't work. Drawing brain can see that this needs to change for X, Y, and Z reasons. No, but so very detailed. My scripts are page X, and then how many panels, and then each panel is broken down, what happens, the dialogue. Um, so yeah, so it is quite detailed. Like I would love to experiment, maybe just having like page one, this happens, page two, this happens, and then like almost Marvel style.
Yeah.
But I haven't quite gotten to that point yet. I think it'd be fun to experiment, but also, um, yeah, I don't know. The way that I kind of write these almost like movie scripts in a
Yeah.
way that they're so detailed and everything that's broken down, and there's so many things that like for example, like I like iconography that like tells a story. So this object has to be in this panel because in however many pages later, that's important again.
Yeah.
And so there's like all sorts of different interconnected things that need to kind of work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you ever written yourself a sequence that was particularly difficult to draw?
Oh, this whole book,
The whole thing.
the whole thing. I mean, uh, yeah, it's funny because um, with Rabbit and Paul, that was so cartoony, and I could really just go crazy with that. So that was very fun to draw,
Yeah.
and the anatomy and the perspective wasn't critical, so I could just kind of fudge a lot of things. So that was very fun.
Yeah.
With Brotherhood now, it's very much like, okay, correct perspective. I have vehicles that have to be in perspective. Um, so many characters. I have so many characters in this that I had to design and keep them consistent. So that's like,
Yeah. Do you like drawing
but
action scenes?
I do, yes, I do enjoy drawing action scenes. And there's a huge one in part one. It's maybe 12 pages long.
Right.
Um, yeah, and that was a lot of fun to create. It's a lot of work though, because how many people are in it? There's 8 different people doing all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
Um, but really, and it's quite ambitious, and I really had a lot of fun like pacing the panels out and showing different parts of the it's a fight, so what's happening.
Yeah.
um so yeah, so every page is its own challenge. And I've definitely like written kind of, I did a short story called Vanity not so long ago for an anthology, and that was much nicer. I was much kinder to myself in that.
Right.
um but yeah. So yeah, the whole book is a challenge. It's
Yeah.
always a challenge. And especially with this book, it I wanted it to be a challenge, so I would learn, get better at anatomy, at landscapes, at everything.
Yeah, I was going to
So
ask that. Was it intentional going in to say I want to push myself with this?
very, very much so. The best advice I ever got, I got this advice from a supervisor of mine, and he actually told me later he felt bad about it. And then I was like, no, 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 this is the best advice anyone has ever told me. Um, he was just doing it was my second year working in animation, and he was just doing calling everybody into a room and just like how's it going? And my supervisor Ben, he says to me, he says, Seán, you just need to get better at drawing. That was it. You just need to get better at drawing.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. And I was like, he's totally right.
Yeah.
And so that really drove me on. So yeah, so with this book, it was really just I want to get better at everything, and I don't want to half-arse any page in the book. I want, to really, really hone my skills, get better at inking, get better at storytelling, at the expressions, at the anatomy, add in weapons that I have to draw, these complicated weapons in perspective. And I really feel the growth as well. So I started drawing the book in 2021.
Yeah.
And, the pages I'm doing now at the end of the book look so much better than the pages I did back then.
Right.
Now, I've inked all the pages in the past year. So, the inking is fairly consistent. But, in terms of, maybe the reader won't, unless they're very savvy, won't realize that there's that big of a discrepancy. But I feel it myself.
Yeah.
There's a huge discrepancy and growth as well in the pages.
Fantastic. Do you bring your books to conventions, and what's the con scene like in Finland?
Yeah, well, here's the funny thing is that I haven't tabled at a convention since 2017, I think.
Right.
Decaf in Dublin. Yeah, it's been a long time. And the main reason is because I wasn't producing new work, really.
Yeah.
So I was back in the day, back in 2015, 2016, I did Dublin Comic Con, and I went to the Comic Con up in Derry. That was my first one, actually.
Yeah.
I've tabled at Top Bubble. So yeah, so really now that Brotherhood is coming out at the end of the year, I can again look at going to conventions and selling the book. In terms of the Finnish scene, well, it's hard. Well, they did just have a big Finnish comic convention there in September, which was actually really fun. And
what's that one called?
It's called the Finland. Let me see. Finland Comic Fest, I think it's called. It's just called the Helsinki Comics Festival. Isn't that great?
Nice and simple.
That's also, it has a Zine festival as well, as part of it. So it's really, that was very cool. But it is a small enough community here, I think. I haven't really gotten to know many of the Finnish creators, as a lot of their work they produce is in Finnish. So it's a little tough to say I love your work when you can't actually read the words. But also there's in a very northern city, there's also a comic festival on in November in Oulu. And I've been thinking maybe it's mid-November, so I was thinking maybe I'll try head up to that just to see what that's all about, because even there's an art school up there that has a comic book course and a comic book residency up there as well. So I'd be interested to go up just to see what's happening all the way up in the pretty much just at the Arctic Circle. What's happening there?
Yeah. Are there any particular writers or artists that you would love to collaborate? Anyone that would be a dream to work with?
Yeah, it's a funny one, because I've spent so long collaborating in animation that's it's almost like, oh, in comics I can collaborate with myself. It's amazing,
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. But I've collaborated a lot in the past with Seamus Kavanagh, who I'm not sure if you know.
It doesn't ring a bell at the moment.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work over the years, and so I've done a few short stories with him for Limit Breaks comics.
Right.
Good guys over there. So I'd love to do something bigger with him. I really get on well with him and really enjoy his writing style. Um, but in terms of collaboration, I mean, I'd love to write a book maybe for like Tyler Crook because I
Yeah.
love his artwork. Um, and I think he also influenced the book, maybe the drawing style a little bit as well. But like his period drawings are just incredible. So to work on something like that would be amazing with him. And then like as an illustrator, I'd love to draw a book maybe for Declan Shalvey from an Irish perspective.
Yeah.
Um, I think he's doing great stuff with independent comics here in
Declan's a nice
Ireland,
guy.
and he's a lovely guy as well to work with. And then maybe further afield, that maybe who knows, maybe in a decade if I get to it, maybe like a Matt Rosenberg or a James Tinian,
Yeah.
like kind of dream collaborations for sure, for sure.
Fingers crossed.
Who knows? Who knows? Just got to keep plugging it, working away, getting
Exactly.
better.
So, what would be your favorite comic book of all time, and why do you like it so much?
Ooh, that's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge. Um, that is a big one. I
For
mean,
me, it varied.
maybe.
Go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, for me, like, it could almost change every month if you ask me.
Yeah, and it's funny. I have a terrible memory as well, so it's. I read a book and I'm like, that was amazing. That changed my life, and then like the next day, I'm like, what did I read?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, but no, it's kind of like I think Scott Pilgrim really had a huge impact on me. That book series,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
like
I hear that one's great
incredible.
fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's six incredible books, and the consistency of them is amazing, and the character work and the development, they're they're like astonishingly good.
What did you
Um,
think of the movie adaptation?
oh well, I love Edgar Wright, so I think I was always going to love the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the movie has to change certain things that like certain things about Scott that I wasn't like. There's some great stuff in the book about his past and like why he is the way he is.
Right.
And I think naturally for the movie they have to kind of simplify his character.
Yeah.
Um, but I think he's a lot more nuanced and he's also a lot more of a piece of shit in the books as well, which
Really?
is yeah. Like in the movie, I think he's just kind of like a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
But in the book, it's kind of like actually like the book, like it's a great book for young men to read because it's like you know talking about like how to respect women and like
Yeah.
don't be an asshole to women.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like that message, like it's in the movie, but it's very, very present in the book series.
Yeah.
Um, but I think probably maybe my favorite comics though. So when I was like 12 or 13, I got this huge collection given to me of comics from my father's friend Tom. His brother collected comics, and he gave me, I don't know, he gave me like €1,000 worth of comics back in the
Wow.
day. And because he had too many, so that was cool.
Yeah.
So he gave me the essential collection of Spider-Man, so the first 6 volumes of that. So over 150 issues of Spider-Man, the like classic Spider-Man, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko,
Yeah.
up to past like the death of Gwen Stacy. So that was like, and I read them in the space of like less than a week. I was just like consuming them. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Just so hooked on them.
Just oh my god, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. It was like I was reading Beano and Dandy up to that point, and I think I had started reading Ultimate Spider-Man by that point as well, the Panini reprints.
Yeah.
But just getting that influx of books and them being so good, I was like, oh my god, this is what I love. This is what I need. Oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then he also like there was a bunch of DC books, like random ones, but like he gave me so much Marvel, and like the Bushik and Perez original like Avengers run, or like the
Yeah,
reboot. He gave me that issue 1 all the way through to Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers issue 20. So that's like
yeah,
I don't know how many, but that's like 100 issues of like the Avengers. So to read that, like, I don't know, that's like maybe 12 years worth of comics all in one go. I was like, oh my God. I was
yeah.
feasting. I was like, whoa. And it blew my little mind at the time.
So that was a
And
big catalyst for you.
I think so, yeah. So I think Tom and his brother are definitely to blame for for my love of comics. They really drove it on.
He's responsible.
Um, for sure. Because, as uh, you're from Dublin, right?
Cavan.
Oh, you're from Cavan. Okay,
Yeah,
lovely. Okay.
the
Okay,
mythical
well then
world
you
of
can
Cavan.
Cavan. I love Cavan. Well, you can relate then, like living in rural Ireland. Like, I knew Forbidden Planet, and there was comic book stores up in Dublin, but like, I'm 12 years old. I can't go up there. There's the Panini reprints in the newsagent that I can read,
Yes, yes.
and the library doesn't have any comics. So, like, to just be given all these, it was like, oh, like, it was amazing.
That's great. Yeah, because I remember when I was younger, it was really frustrating. I could just I just got whatever I could get my hands on. Really, you're really restricted to what you could get.
Yeah, for sure. And then of course you end up reading, those what you have, you kept rereading and reading.
Yeah,
Um, and so you do form this very strong kind of bond with those with the books that you do have.
absolutely. Is there a particular comic book storyline that you would like to see adapted, something that's never been done before that you think would make a great movie?
Uh, you know what? It's funny. I actually, I'm so sick of adaptations. It's funny.
Yeah, it's a bit much, isn't it?
I Yeah, like it's almost to the point where like sometimes like
Oh, sorry, you cut out there for a second.
yeah, like
Hello? Okay,
Okay,
so
sorry, I cut out there, I think. Yeah.
that's no worries. I'm not quite sure where you cut out, but just continue forever, whatever feels right.
Yeah.
So, comic book adaptations, is there any you think would make a particularly good movie?
So I uh, yeah, as I was saying, I love when comics are comics, and I love when movies are kind of, you can watch a great adaptation for sure, but I definitely kind of prefer when mediums utilize the best. Now, that being said, I do think maybe Nice House on the Lake by James Tinian and Alvaro Martinez. I think that would make, but yeah, and as well, I think Brotherhood is new. I think that would also make a great like limited TV show. But
Yeah.
hello.
So you have that kind of in mind in the future, but possibly as a possibility?
Oh, I love that. I think also there's a small delay maybe with Discord, but
Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's
no, I
improving
mean,
now.
I, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it, of course, adapted. Like more people, there's a certain subset or there's a certain portion of the population who will never read a comic book.
Yeah,
So to get this story to them, I think adaptation is the way to go. And hopefully then more people will be curious and pick up the comic.
yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
kind of one of the driving forces behind making the book was definitely that, in terms of our own like Irish history, is that there isn't that much like fiction about like the revolutionary period. There's a lot of kind of like there's a few comics about it, but they're quite like historical based and very factual.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like, there's a few TV shows that like RTE have done, but they're quite stuffy and very like very reverent to the past and very like was to actually make something that's a little that can play with our history, examine it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the story I think works super well as a comic, but obviously, yeah, it could work in other mediums as well.
Fantastic. Who would be your dream character to draw if you could draw anybody?
I do love Spider. Oh, I'd love to draw Spider-Man.
Right.
Spider-Man on like even like a mini series. I think it would be great, and to draw Peter Parker as well and just his world. That would be pretty incredible. But actually, one of my favorite characters, like from comics, I love Jack of Hearts from Marvel Comics.
Right.
Um, and I would love. I have an idea. I would love to do like a mini series about Jack of Hearts someday. I think his character is so interesting, especially like from that run of Avengers that I read pre like New Avengers. His
Yeah.
so like in the early 2000s. So his character arc from there was very interesting. So I'd like to explore that character kind of more. And he also has a very nice character design as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Nice one. So what
Yeah.
advice
Do
would
you
you?
have a dream character you would like to write or?
Oh, there's a lot. I I'd love to write a story with Ash Williams from Evil Dead.
Ah, yeah, okay.
I love the Evil Dead franchise. When I started writing comics, the dream was always Batman or Spider-Man. They were my top two. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, so there's lots. I love horror, so I'd love to write for a horror icon, Freddy or Jason or Michael or one of those. That would be pretty sweet.
Of course, of course.
Are you a big
Yeah,
horror
yeah.
fan?
Yeah, it's funny. The Evil Dead. Oh, big horror fan. I like horror. I've definitely seen like a fair bit of movies, but the kind of the franchise horror, it's kind of like I haven't really gotten into like Halloween or Friday the 13th all that much. It's
Yeah,
kind of more I guess the A24 horror films are kind of more my bag.
yeah.
Um, like like the Babadook or um, what's that? The movie set in Sweden. What's that one again? Oh, Midsummer. Midsummer. Like something
Um,
like that. That's the kind of horror that I like, where it's kind of it's not a big monster coming to get you, but it's the human psyche, the human
yes,
experience.
yeah, yeah. They're my favorite types. Like I do love a good slasher and all that, but my favorite horror stories are very psychological. Um, and
Mm.
I love what you can do with a horror story when you have good character writing on top of that. It's just great.
Yeah, well, I would say the character writing is kind of the most important. So that's maybe why slashers are in my go-to. But yeah, well, any story, if you start with the characters, you're going to come out with something that's above par.
Yeah, exactly. So, what advice would you give to people who are thinking of going the Kickstarter route with their own project?
Yeah, so Brotherhood was my first ever Kickstarter. So that's been a real interesting. It actually only just finished yesterday.
Yeah. How's the experience
So
been
very
overall?
quick. Yeah, it was very good, very positive, I have to say. I've seen so many people do it in the past that I was like, okay, well, for Brotherhood, I should really give it a go.
Yeah.
And like their tools, like the Kickstarter tools are very like they're excellent. So you can really like craft your page and your campaign through their website.
Yeah.
And then, but it's a lot of work actually. like getting it together, getting all the images and the text right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of work to begin, and then you have to launch it, and then you have to campaign, and you like go onto social media, and
Yeah, it looks like such a big
um,
undertaking.
yeah, it's huge. Like, and especially like maybe in the future, I would maybe if it worked out, have the book like almost ready to go before launching a Kickstarter, because working on the book while also running the Kickstarter, it's like doing two jobs at the one time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so it's hard to focus on both things. But yeah, very interesting. Because you get that. It's a great marketing tool. Great to
Yeah.
introduce the book to different people. Like, you can see all the names of the people that have backed the project, and it's wonderful how many people I do not know.
Yeah.
Who probably would have never heard about the book if it wasn't on Kickstarter. So um, I think it's very interesting, and it's great. You know, we got almost twice funded over. So it's
Brilliant.
great to have that confidence. The print run is paid for. There's an inbuilt audience now, so I know going straight away that there's over 120 people who will read the book. And
Yeah.
that's like the most important thing. Like, you write a book, you want people to read it. So
Yeah.
it's really wonderful to know that there is an audience there.
Yeah.
Um, but the best advice I give is start small. My goal was pretty small for this, because I didn't want to say look for 10 grand out the gate, and then like I haven't built an audience for that. So
Yeah.
start small and build up from it. And yeah, really look at other people's campaigns as well. I had maybe 10 or 20 other people's campaigns up. Like, how do they word things? How do they lay things out?
Yeah.
And take what you like and what appeals to you.
So you did a lot of research in that area.
Yeah, I think so. Like every part of comic creation, it's all about research and understanding how people do things. And
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
Kickstarter is interesting as well. Like, there's independent creators, there's the smallest creator, and then there's also these huge publishers now as well who are doing like massive campaigns as well. So um, when you're up against, like, if your book is in a comic book store, you're up against Marvel and DC. If your book is now on Kickstarter, you're also up against like IDW and Dark Horse and all these other
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
putting out their books. So you really kind of have to think about that and have the Kickstarter be like the page be as um, professional as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you're finished Brotherhood, do you have another project in mind, or are you just going to take a break from creator-owned stuff for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty of projects I would love to do.
Yeah.
Um, Now that once part one comes out, I'll definitely take. December's going to be lovely. I won't. I probably won't touch a pen maybe for the month. I'll do
Yeah.
some drawing on the iPad, but nothing too serious. And I'd love to just do some kind of smaller projects, like 4-pagers, just to
Yeah.
just kind of have fun
Yeah.
on this huge project.
I'm kind of
And
like that
then
as well. After, so sometimes I've just finished up a pretty big novel, and then I'm like,
mm,
okay, next I'm just going to do a little short story just to chill out a bit, get something out there, but not kill myself.
exactly. And you can experiment, like with a short story, you can experiment. You can
Yeah.
try a different like writing style or rendering style, and there's not that pressure of 76 pages need to look all like there's from the same project.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
In terms
Once,
of comic books,
once,
what are you reading at the moment?
what am I reading at the moment? I just finished Brian K. Vaughan, and I forget the artist's name. They had Private Eye, is that what it's called? Um, so I read that. That was fantastic, and I really liked. It's told originally it was a webcomic, and it's all in landscape. So I
Okay.
think that's really, really, really nice. Uh, I should really, you know what? the artist is just as important on this book. So I'll just quickly get the artist's name. Private Eye, Brian K. Vaughan. Marcos Martin.
Right.
His artwork is so nice in that book,
Yeah.
and his rendering, like how he draws the characters, is like clear. Like this guy's been around for a while, so like they're at the top of their game. But so like they make it look effortless, you know, and that's always like really really impressive. And then I also the last actual book I finished was The Many Lives of uh, by Ram V. What was that called? Layla Starr, is it? The Many Deaths of Layla Starr by Ram V and Felipe Andrade.
Fantastic.
That was that was quite nice. I have to say. I think it was originally a four-part series, so I think that was a very nice book. Really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. I must add them to the reading list.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely recommend it. Especially Private Eye. I think Private Eye was like really, really stellar.
Is that a one-off, just a one-off book?
Yeah, they originally released it as web comics, I think, in like 2016, but it's a book with 12 chapters, and yeah, really, I love one-off books. Like if it's a one-off, perfect.
Yeah, I'm the same.
That's my dream comic.
Yeah, especially if it's creators that I'm not too familiar with. I like to just get a one-off and see how I get on with it.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard, especially when so many series are 10 volumes long. It's like, oh,
it
that's
can
a
be
big investment.
it can be a bit overwhelming, like where diving into all that. So it can be cool though, like when you're really enjoying something and there's so much of it, that can be awesome as well.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Like there's some things you just don't want to end.
Yeah, like I love Chew. You know, Chew was 12 volumes, and that was like
Oh, that's been
that was great.
recommended to me a few times. Yeah, I must get on that. Like for years, people have been recommending that one.
Yeah, excellent, great art, and great writing. And I think they did like a sequel series that I haven't checked out just yet. But
Yeah,
yeah, really super stuff.
that's Image Comics, isn't it?
Yeah, Image. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks a million, Seán, for jumping on. Where can people find you and your work?
Yeah, so I'm on all the major. There's so many. I'm on all the major social media.
Yeah, there's a lot
Um,
now.
so you can find me on like Twitter, Blue Sky. I'm at Seán O Hogan, so it's my name in Irish. So SeanOhogain.
Fantastic.
And on Instagram, I'm Seán O'Hogan Story.
Fantastic.
And yeah, and my website is www.sean-hogan.com.
Fantastic. I'll grab all those links off you and I'll put them in the description so people can check out them.
Super, super. Yeah, I had a really load of fun talking to you, Steve.
Yeah, same.
Really
I must get you back on when book 2 is out and we'll have a chat about that.
Super. Yeah. Would love to do that.
Brilliant, Seán. Cheers. Talk to you again soon.
Anyway, talk to you soon, and best of luck with your book launch is coming up soon, right?
It is. It's I'm panicking a bit because I want to have it ready for Badoom, and it should be. But there's always that little bit in your head, it's like, will it be though? And I'm like, yeah, it should be.
It should be. It should be. Okay. Well, best of luck with it. Hope it does great.
Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
A1. Thanks, man.